Hello pilots, I'm going to give a quick video here on how to splice unsheathed paraglider lines. Now we splice lines as small as 0.25 millimeters on up, much larger sizes. I did a video earlier on a thinner 1 millimeter line, but I think I'll do one that's on a thicker line here to show the process a little bit easier than before. Now, when we use these smaller lines like this, I'm using some very fine jewelry wire that's folded in half in order to insert it in between the braid in order to splice it together. And then I have various splicing tool sizes on up to something like this for my larger lines. So let's begin. First, I'm going to take a piece of paraglider line. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to make my marks, make my tail the length that's specified for that specific paraglider or line, that diameter, whatnot, and they vary from 60 millimeters to 100 millimeters in length. My end loops average about 30 millimeters in length, so I'll go ahead and fold it and make my mark at the apex for the length that's desired, and plus whatever millimeters, because once you splice this, it actually changes the dimensions. So there's varying degrees from 3 to 5 to 7 to 10, actually all the way up to 12 millimeters that it's going to change the length of it because of the splicing. So you have to take that into consideration as well. But I'll go ahead and make my marks at 30 millimeters for my end loop, and then I'll cut a piece of the same line at 55 millimeters, because this distance between these two dots is 60 millimeters, so it's a little bit less. And then you taper it. So I'll use a tool like this to taper the ends so that they gradually diminish once they're inside the thicknesses. And as well as the end of the line, we taper it so the transition from when it's spliced inside to the normal part of the line that's not spliced will be gradual. So let's begin by showing you how we're going to get this inserted into here, because this will help bolster up the loop. As you can see here, it's this one's completed. We insert that in there so that it doesn't, so your loop doesn't end up just creased and all the stress is at that one little point. We'll put this on the inside of the braid, and that'll help the radius be more gradual for when it's connecting to lines, as well as the Melian quick links on your paraglider. So first off, I'm going to take this piece and we're going to start at, doesn't matter which side you start on, because to insert this we'll start at the mark, and I actually start just before the mark, and we'll just smoosh it up so it becomes a little thicker, and then we insert the splicing tool inside it, and then we just push it along. And now this is pushing easy because it's a larger diameter line, but on smaller diameter lines like these babies here, I'll actually have to hold that and push it to let it get thicker like that. See how the line gets thicker because I'm holding this back in, and once it gets thicker, then it'll slide down easier. Hold it, push it, slide, milk it. But on these bigger lines, you don't have to worry about. So here's my apex, here's either side of my loop. I'll go just past this mark, and then I'll poke through the side, and then I'll insert the piece that I'm going to bring on the inside. And so I'll pass it a little bit further, that way I can open up my wire, get this puppy in there, wet it. It doesn't taste too good. This is always a struggle for me, so bear with me. Let's go the other side then. There we go. And once you get it in there, you're just gonna take it to the end. Oh, almost pulled it out. Oh shoot, I did pull it out. So let's go back. And this is the real deal. This is what happens. You want to get all the fibers in there. Slide it to the end. Now you got to crease it like this. And then we're going to take this part and just slide it back over it. So I'm going to butt that right up to the crease. The last 1/4 inch. Okay, and then I'm just going to get this so it's pooched up so it can go over it. And it's just it's an art. So I'm pushing this up, but not too much, so it can, and then I'll squeeze that crease a little bit, and then I'll kind of milk it around it, so it goes by it. Every now and then you got to give a little oomph, and then just kind of wiggle it side by side until it goes inside. And you know, I forgot my tweezers. They're in my other room, so I'm gonna have to do this without my tweezers, and you'll see what those are for in a second. Work it, work it, work it. Come on, baby. Get too much tension, you just gotta back it off a hair. There we go. So now it's over it. Now it's just gonna go right over it. And I don't want to grab the whole thing, so I'll usually get my tweezers here and grab it. So I'm just gonna grab it with my finger as it pulls out the other end. This is going to be much more difficult without my trusty tweezers to clamp on that end. So you get the other end through, like so. And of course, it's holding pretty good. And then I'm going to slide this off. Okay, and now I'm going to pull that back in so it's on that side of the mark. And I'm holding the other end. That's what my tweezers are usually doing. And I'll pull that in, and as it goes inside, you can actually feel when it gets to that mark, the transition. So it's still on this side of the line, and now, yeah, we're right there. So a little more, a little more. There we go. So it's tapered. There's the end. So I'll pinch it now, and then I'm going to milk this down so it covers that in it. Milk it, and now the whole thing's inside between the marks. So my insert is between this mark and this mark, and as you can see, the transition is gradual. Okay, and so that actually bolsters up your loop. Okay, now we're going to take and insert this inside of this portion, and so I'll line up these marks like so. Then I'll see where this ends up, and I'll actually start my tool before that, so that it'll have plenty to go past this and you'll see what I'm talking about in a second here. So I'm going to start my tool entry right here, and I'm going to bring it up to this point to exit, and then I'll grab the tip here and pull it inside. So watch how this goes. So take this, we bring it up, swoosh it up. There you go. Work that in. Smaller lines are a lot more time consuming than these bigger ones. It's a real slow process, but it's all the same concept. Oops, see, poke through the sides, you just back up. And that's why it's good if you just smoosh it and let it get bigger radius, and that goes in easier. You take your time. You don't want to rush on this. You can really, you don't save any time trying to rush. So poke through right where the mark is. Now I'm going to get the end. I'm going to stick it through. Again, I'm going to slide it way past where I'm going to insert it so that I can take my fingernails and open the wire up so I can get all the little parts of this inside and use that with it. My mouth doesn't taste too good. Stick it past the point where I need it. Get all the little fibers in, and then bring it back. And then I'll slide it to the end. Slide it back so it gets the last portion of it, last quarter-inch. Crease it back, and now I'm going to slide this all up to it. Crease it. Now, you know, and just kind of work it little by little. You don't want to push this up too tight because then these threads won't expand that much. Just kind of roll your fingers back and forth. A little bit of pressure. Now it's going over it, and once it gets over it, it's real easy. Now I'm going to pull it to the end comes out the other end. There we go. I'll pull the tail off, or the splicing wire off. Okay, so I don't want this to go inside yet, so I usually take my tweezers and clamp onto that, hold it, And at this end, I'm going to pull it. My mark lined up this mark with that mark, so I got to actually pull the end till they line up. And now they're lined up where I want them. And then I'm going to pinch that and make sure the marks are right lined up. So I have my loop the size I want. And make sure the splice part is not. Gotta pull the sheath back a little bit. There we go. I'm going to pinch that and then just milk it down. And then the tail will disappear inside. Voila. Voila. Okay. And there she be. That's how you splice a sheath paraglider line. Now these act like Chinese, this braid acts like a Chinese handcuff around the portion that we inserted inside. And this loop won't change size now. And I can pull as hard as I can and it is not going to come out. I mean, it's, you don't even need to stitch it, but we do that. The factories do that. We'll stitch a single straight stitch here for 30 millimeters and as a second backup. But I'm telling you, I've done line strength tests and pulled these puppies, and the line ends up breaking at the line and not pulling apart at the splice, even when I don't do that stitch. It's incredible how strong a splice holds in these lines. Anyhow, that gives you an idea how we splice our lines. Last thing I'm going to do, like I mentioned earlier, is, as you can see here, there's a straight stitch that's 30 millimeters long. And I do that even on these tiny little lines. And that's how we do it. Got any questions, feel free to contact us, tandemparagliding.org.